guys, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of Machine Heads from Compact Equipment. Look, if you love construction equipment and you love talking about construction equipment, well, you're in the right place. Here on Machine Heads, we don't just talk horsepower and basic specs. We dig deep, detailing the why and how behind the features and improvements that are pushing the latest compact equipment forward. I'm your host, Wayne Grayson. Today on Machine Heads, we've got a great conversation coming up for you with David Caldwell. David is the National Product Manager for Excavators at Takeuchi US. And we're going to be talking with David about the TB20E, the first electric excavator from Takeuchi US, and really about the state of this electric excavator segment, what you should be looking for out of an electric excavator, the features of the TB20E from Takeuchi specifically, and why Takeuchi has decided to enter the market with this machine today. They've been on the market for about a year now. It was first introduced at ConExpo 2023 last year, started in the rental market. We're also going to be talking about that, renting versus buying. So there's a lot to get into with David here. So without any further ado, here's our Machine Heads interview with David Caldwell of Takeuchi US. David Caldwell, thank you so much for joining us here on Machine Heads today with Compact Equipment. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Wayne.
No problem. David, you are the product manager for excavators at Takeuchi US, and the perfect man to talk to, because today we're going to be talking about electric excavators. Now, last year at ConExpo 2023, you guys showcased the new TB20E, and this is your first electric excavator here in the US market. So I wanted to kind of start there with you guys' perception of the state of this market and the demand for electric compact equipment here in the United States. Give us a little bit of the background on introducing that machine, why you guys decided to do it now, and what are some of the things that you guys have learned about demand for electric excavators here in this first year of it being on the market?
Well, Wayne, that's a good question. You know, over the last few years, demand has generally been driven by the rental market and municipalities in certain regions of the country. So we launched it at ConExpo because we saw the opportunity for electric machines starting to bud and grow, and we really wanted to get into that market, early and try to be one of the first to launch a product of that nature. So we've been looking at this technology for quite some time, and we felt like, where the market was headed and where electric demand for machines was headed, we felt like 2023 would be a really good opportunity to bring it to market.
And from you guys' perspective, I know rental is huge for you guys, and we'll definitely kind of get into that from the customer perspective. But from the business perspective and the timing that you guys decided to go with, what are the customers, either the non-rental but the rental as well, if you want to kind of address both of those segments, but like what are they really looking for in a compact electric excavator right now, and why are they really interested in these machines?
Well, a lot of it's application driven. A key to a lot of our customers is actually the runtime and the performance of the machine. A lot of those guys don't want to have to charge a machine every couple of hours, so it's really critical to them that this machine runs and performs very similarly to the diesel-powered option. A lot of these guys are working indoors and in applications that have strict emission standards and strict rules regarding noise levels and things of that nature. So we needed to be mindful of that. And a lot of jobs now, even though you can put scrubbers on a diesel-powered machine, now that's not necessarily good enough, and they want machines that are going to run clean and, keep the operator and those around him from being exposed to the emissions on a diesel-powered unit. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. And so how did you guys, tell me a little bit about how you guys entered the market with this machine and some of the retail and rental partnerships that you guys had. I think that you guys, you mentioned before we started recording, that you guys started this machine out in the rental segment, but how have you guys kind of progressed moving this machine into the market?
Well, like you stated, we initially brought it out to the rental industry just to get feedback, because it would be with a lot more customers over, a short amount of time and be exposed to more customers through the rental market, and it would give us a good test bed to see how the machine actually performed and prior to launching it to our general customers. So after we had the initial time with our rental customers, after about a year, we felt the time came where we could offer it to our dealers. And our dealer, I feel like the demand is still driven by the rental market, and certain municipalities, especially out west, that demand, an electric machine for a lot of applications. But I think the owner-operators are remaining fairly conservative, as I feel like they're waiting to see where the market is headed, as well as how the technology and the pricing may improve over time.
Right. Absolutely. And speaking of that, the state of the technology and kind of what these machines look like today versus what they might look like in the future. Tell us a little bit about the TB20E and the specifics around that machine. What defines it? How big is this machine? Its battery life? All the basic specs that we need to know.
Well, when we had the TB20E, when we started with that machine, we wanted to make sure that our customers were going to be pleased with its performance and runtime. So the 20E has a runtime, depending on the load, of approximately 6 to 8 hours. And typically during a workday on these smaller machines, these guys are on and off the machine a lot. So they're not running the machine constantly or nonstop for extended periods of time. And, one big impact on these machines is if they're running a hydraulic hammer or some other hydraulically driven attachment, that does impact the runtime of the machine. One of the key features of the 20E, and something that I like to talk about a lot, is that we can also run that machine tethered. So should the battery get low, we can tether that machine to either 120 volts or 240 volts using the machine's onboard charger. And the 120 volt option, it may give the guy the extra time he needs just to finish a task or, move the machine to a location where it can be charged. And on the 240 volt charge, he can actually gain some additional run time, allowing him to finish up a job should that battery level start to decrease. The 20E is a 1.9 ton excavator. It's about 4,250 pounds. It has a dig depth of 7 feet 10 inches and a max reach of over 13 feet, close to 13 and a half feet. And one thing that makes these machines popular with customers is that they're very easy to transport, and they have a retractable undercarriage, so it makes it much easier to get into some of these job sites close to structures or in really restricted areas that are hard to get a larger machine in. So we can take that undercarriage and go from 51 inches down to 38.6 inches roughly. So it allows them to really access some tight job sites, get into backyards of houses, get in between buildings and things of that nature.
Yeah, I think that definitely one thing I want to kind of follow up on is the tethered operation. The fact that this can operate on both 120 and 240 while tethered is absolutely huge. Tell us a little bit about the on the 120 you mentioned you can actually run the excavator, but it sounds like on the 240 it might actually start recharging the battery while it runs, correct?
It does keep up with the battery discharge better than the 110, the 120. The 120 will actually not keep up with the discharge on the battery, so that's why I mentioned they may get a little bit of time in order to move the machine or possibly finish up a small task or something on the job site. So 240 volt is what we're encouraging folks to do, and they simply need to change out the connector on the machine from a 120 volt connector to a 240 volt connector on the onboard charger. So it's really something that's very simple for them to do. We're real excited to have that option where a lot of folks don't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a big differentiator. On the 240, how long? I assume that it can charge. Can it charge on both the 120 and the 240, or just on the 240? Okay.
It can charge on it, either one. We also have a rapid charger, a portable rapid charger. The 120 and 240 volt, it depends. If the customer runs it all the way down, it could take around 10 hours to fully charge the machine. So they could get their job done, hook it up overnight, come back the next morning, it's ready to go to work. With the offboard charger or the rapid charger, it requires quite a bit more voltage. So it's a 480 volt charge basically. And that can typically charge the machine if it's, fully used up the battery, that can charge it in about 4 hours. But if you're going between 20 and 80% charge, it can do it in about 2 hours.
Okay.
So you can basically, if the customer has the rapid charger, they can take their lunch break and get nearly a full charge on it while they're on their lunch break.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Thinking about with this 2-ton machine, and you mentioned kind of how important. I mean, and I think in general for compact excavators, obviously is the hydraulic tools that are running. But the indoor applications are obviously huge with this. Having the ability to tether on those indoor applications is definitely a really nice feature. What are some of the other reasons that we haven't discussed so far, that really kind of put these electric excavators into a class of their own, or kind of maybe make them a better option than their non-electric counterparts?
Well, that's a good question. The benefit of the electric is, on any diesel powered machine, of course, you have engine oil filters, fuel filters, fuel. The electric machines have fewer moving components and parts than a diesel powered machine. So that's a big advantage because it doesn't have the wear and tear on the parts over time and require additional servicing and downtime. So that is a big advantage of the electric machine, in our opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when it comes to kind of like renting and buying, we were talking earlier how you guys launched this machine to get kind of like an understanding of really what the customer would need out of the machine and how they would use it. So obviously the machines are still available for rent, but they're also available for purchase. We're kind of getting into really a cost-benefit analysis for a lot of the contractors out there. What do you guys kind of recommend from the approach of kind of getting your feet wet with one of these machines? When should a contractor or somebody who's interested in one of these electric, one of the TB20Es, when should they consider buying one versus renting one based on what you guys have seen from this first year of operation?
Well, I think the individual needs to be aware, like you said, the initial cost is generally, 2 to 3 times that of a diesel powered machine. So number one, he's got to be aware of that initial cost, and he's got to be certain that whatever job he's going to be on, whether it's working indoors or areas with strict noise requirements, he needs to be doing that on a frequent basis.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's not going to be working in areas like that on a regular basis, then it really doesn't justify the additional cost of the machine. But I feel very strongly if he knows he's going to be doing that, more often than not, then the electric machine is a very good way to go.
So, yeah, when it comes to like that decision between renting and buying, is it for you guys? Is it more based on kind of like the differences in the feel of operation, or is it really that cost benefit analysis of making sure that you're going to have this machine working, a lot of number of hours in those specific instances where electric excavators really excel over diesel machines?
That's a good question, and really, going from a diesel powered machine to the electric machine, the nice thing is on our machines, they function exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
So you can ramp up the motor speed just like you would the throttle on a diesel machine. The joysticks function very similarly to the diesel powered machine. So for an operator to transition from one to the other is really not that difficult. So
are there any operational benefits that you guys are seeing from obviously going for that smooth transition from diesel to electric is really important, but are there, response time, any other kind of differences between this electric machine and the diesel counterpart that are kind of beneficial?
From what we've seen, the diesel or the electric machine tends to operate a little quicker, it seems. So,
okay.
I had a guy on one job that I interviewed and talked to that was wanting a 4-ton excavator for the job. And I provided him with the emissions data on our 4-ton machine. Of course, we don't have an electric machine in that size class.
Right.
And I provided him that information, and the company that he was doing the work for would not allow that. So we gave him our only option, which was our 20E, and he was real excited with the way the machine performed. They were actually doing some very difficult digging, and it was a very tough application, and the machines performed very well, and they were actually working them a full day, so they weren't off and on the machine very often other than their breaks and lunchtime, and they were very pleased with the way it felt, the way it performed, and it was very productive for them.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, and so What were some of the things that he was impressed by specifically? You mentioned kind of the power and maybe the quickness to response and everything. But I mean, for him to come to you and ask for like a 4-ton and for the 2-ton to kind of get the job done, what were some of the things that he kind of mentioned, not expecting, or what were his big takeaways?
I think he was really surprised at the actual runtime of the machine, that they were actually able to complete their jobs, over the course of the day without losing power on the machine, that it actually ran as we expected, for, 6 to 8 hours. But also, one thing I didn't mention was that they put 2 of the 20Es on that job.
Okay.
So they were actually able to finish that job a little quicker than they expected with those 2 machines.
Okay.
They were able to have 2 operators working in tandem and get the task complete.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so I mean, I think for a lot of folks, the fact that you guys have these in rental houses, that is going to be very beneficial. Kind of get their kind of first experience with these machines, and I think a lot of folks obviously kind of come in with certain kind of assumptions about how the technology is going to work, and you might be surprised. Especially when it comes to the runtime and the power, the quickness of response, just how well these machines can perform for you. Kind of finishing out here things, David, I wanted to talk a little bit about how you guys are at Takeuchi US are moving forward with this segment, the future for electric excavators. What are you guys really most excited about from this technology? How are you guys looking to expand that forward, and what are some of the things that you guys are really kind of focusing on to make these machines better?
So we're looking at, in the future, some additional technologies. So we're looking at possibly remote controlled units, autonomous units, as well as possible portable or machine mounted solar charging capabilities.
Cool.
The advantage of remote controlled or autonomous options for us is that they remove the operator from dangerous situations on the job site. You're able to have a broader view of the job site and possible hazards on the job site. And you also don't have to worry about an individual showing up for work.
Right.
So,
yep.
It reduces your labor cost. It reduces your liability and exposure. It reduces machine idle time, and it can help lower repair costs on the machine that result from improper operation or a careless operator.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Well, David, is there anything in our discussion today about the TB20E, the state of the electric machines and everything? Is there anything that you wanted to add about these machines that you feel like customers need to know and kind of encourage them to seek them out?
I think it's a good opportunity to mention we have a TB216H, which is an alternative. It's the same size class, basically, same level of performance, but it's a diesel electric option.
Okay.
So where the 20E can run only on the battery, and it can and can't be, you can either run it tethered or not. The 216H has to be tethered, but the advantage of that machine is they can use the diesel engine to load and unload the machine. They can use the diesel engine to move it to the job site, but then they can switch to electric mode and tether the machine and run it and get the same level of performance of the diesel power machine, because it has a separate pump group, same displacement and everything else as the diesel engine. So it's going to provide the operator with the same level of performance. So that's an option that we also have, and it's also priced a little better. The list price roughly on a 20E is about $79,000. The list price on the diesel electric option is about $59,000.
Okay.
So it may provide a guy with an option to get into the industry and work in places that normally he wouldn't be able to work.
Oh, for sure. And if you're kind of considering working tethered with the TB20E quite a bit anyway, then it would make a lot of sense to just go with the H in that case. Right. For sure.
Right.
For sure.
Yep.
Well, cool. Well, David, man, thank you so much for hopping on Machine Heads today to talk to us about the TB20. TB20E and the state of electric excavators. It's definitely going to be interesting to kind of see how this technology and the segment kind of matures going forward. We really appreciate the time, man. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Wayne.
Guys, that's going to do it here on Machine Heads with our interview with David Caldwell of Takeuchi US. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you again to David for hopping on to talk about the TB20E and all of the great features that you can expect out of this machine. If you enjoyed this episode, found it helpful in any kind of way, please do us a favor and leave a comment below, hit the like button, and subscribe to us here on the Compact Equipment YouTube channel. It really does help us out quite a lot in continuing to bring you these videos on the latest in compact equipment. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the next one.